it's Linda. Welcome back to my channel. So you might have seen a video I posted a few weeks ago, which was an anti-haul. It was telling you about all these things coming out that I was either not interested in, or even if I was interested in, I just wasn't going to buy it. Well, I done fucked up. Here's the problem. I was all set not to buy this specific collection, which you already know what it is from the title of the video, but I walked into Sephora on Black Friday and I was just kind of looking to see what kind of Black Friday deals they had. And then front and center, they had these two palettes and I was like, okay, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. You know what? I said to myself, I'm gonna swatch these and they're gonna be terrible. They're gonna be awful. The quality is going to be subpar. I'm not even going to want them. And then I touched them and I walked up to the register and immediately bought both of them thereafter, and there we are. So ladies and gents, I am talking about the Melt Cosmetics Amor Eterno collection with the Vita and the Muerte palettes. This, I mean, oh God, look at it, just look at it. Look at it and you can immediately see that before I even touched it, it was mine. But here's what I want to do. These palettes are no small investment. So I did want to break them down for you in my series, which I call Worth It, where I talk to you guys all about the cost per gram dupes that you might find, what kind of policies the brand has, and a little bit about the brand so you can know if it's a brand that you choose to support. Down in the description, there's going to be timestamps. So if you just want to skip maybe just to the application, or if you want to skip to the swatches, you can do that. But let's get started. This video might be a little bit long, but I do want to give you guys as much information as possible because again, this is no small purchase. Let's start with some info on the brand, which is Melt Cosmetics. Melt was founded in 2012 in the US by Laura Oriano and Dana Bomar. And basically they were originally only out, they just wanted to make lipsticks. They just wanted to make some matte lipsticks. But the first time that they put out their collection, it sold out immediately. So they knew that it had to be something bigger than that. Laura is a Latino makeup artist and Dana previously worked for Smashbox, so they both knew the makeup world pretty well, but they were able to just solely work on Melt Cosmetics once it started taking off, even though Laura still has done some makeup for some pretty famous people, paging Rihanna. But they are based in the US and all of their products are manufactured in California. As far as the return policy, there are two different ones. So you can either order this off of Melt Cosmetics website, or you can order it from Sephora, or obviously buy it in the Sephora store. I purchased it in a Sephora store, but according to Melt's website, if you receive your product within 30 days and you do not want it, you can send it back for a full refund. They will not refund your shipping. Or if it's damaged, same thing, you can get a refund or you can get your product replaced. If you decide you hate the product, you can even ship it in for an exchange. It's just there's a little bit of weirdness with shipping where they are not going to refund the shipping that you pay to send it back to them, but once they get it and they send out whatever new item you want, they will ship that to you for free. So does that make sense? As far as Sephora, if you send it back within 30 days, you'll get a free refund. If you send it back within 31 to 60 days after purchase, you'll get a store credit. As far as exchanges with Sephora, you cannot do an exchange by mail, but you can take this and to exchange it for another product in store. Now let's talk about their cruelty-free and vegan status. Of course, if I'm talking about it on my channel, you probably already know that it is cruelty-free and they are Leaping Bunny certified. So this means that they have given enough information and have answered enough questions to certify that they do not test on animals. None of their ingredients are tested on animals. They do not buy anything from third-party suppliers that is tested on animals, and they are also not sold in China. Now it's interesting the vegan status because the palettes are pretty drastically different. In the Vita palette, there is only one shade that is not vegan, and that is the shade Soul. And when I do the swatches, I will note which ones are not vegan. In the Muerte palette, however, which is very kind of red based, 5 out of the 10 shades are not vegan. So if you are vegan and you're really wanting these, I would go with the Vita palette. Only one of the shades is not vegan, as opposed to this one where you would only be able to use half of the shades. Again, when I do my swatches, look for a note on the screen and it'll tell you which ones are not vegan. So this is the part where I talk about price comparisons and I let you know the cost per gram of product, and I compare it against some other palettes that are on the market. Sometimes I compare them against palettes that are similar, but I mean, other times I'm just gonna compare it to what's popular. What's super interesting to me about this is that you would think that two palettes in the same collection would have the same amount of product and therefore have the same amount of cost per gram. They do not. Each of these palettes has 10 shadows, and each of these palettes is $58. Now I will say at the time that this video is coming out, Sephora is having a sale where you get $20 off a purchase of $75 or more if you are VIB. If you are VIB Rouge, you get $25 off. So that's a hefty discount, and if you like these enough, you might want to consider using that discount to buy these. The Vita palette has 16.2 grams of product. which brings it out to $3.58 per gram. The Muerte palette, on the other hand, has 17.73 grams of product, so almost a gram and a half more than the Vita, which brings it to $3.27 per gram. So this palette is almost 50 cents more per gram than this palette. I find that really interesting. Now I'm gonna put a chart up here on the screen to show you other various price comparisons. And I will be honest, these palettes do fall on the mid to high end of the scale of the palettes that I compared it to. Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes are always pretty dang expensive, and the Soft Glam palette is $4.05 per gram, which is pretty high. But then you have something like Juvia's Place, where it is only 62 cents per gram, and you are getting an amazing deal for that price. What I also found interesting is that the Melt Cosmetics Radioactive palette is $2.55 per gram. So Melt Cosmetics varies greatly between palettes. Like Anastasia Beverly Hills is fairly even with all of their palettes with the amount of cost per gram. The Melt Cosmetics ones, not so much. So you're paying $58 for this palette. Let's take a look at the actual palette, starting with the packaging. The outer cartons are obviously stunning. I would normally get rid of these. I'm not going to. I'm going to keep these. I might even consider using this as a piece of art. That's how much I am so in love with this packaging. I think it's beautiful and a lot of thought went into it. And as far as the palettes themselves, they're exactly the same, except you see how you can see some reflection? Well, some areas are nice and glossy and raised from the palette, and others are matte. So it's really beautiful. It catches the light really nice. This is foiled at the top, and just, I'm so in love with this. And same thing with the Vita palette. Again, we've got some raised areas that are nice and glossy, and it continues on the back as well. A lot of thought went into this, a lot of care, a lot of love. It's by far, to me, the most beautiful packaging I've ever seen. I'm gonna throw down that gauntlet and say it's the most stunning packaging ever. And now it's time to start looking at the palettes. Let's start with the Vita palette. One thing to note is that the Vita palette is not called an eyeshadow palette, it is called a pressed pigment palette. What this means is that one or more of the ingredients in the palette is not approved by the FDA for use on or around the eyes, so you can use that at your own risk. I will probably still be using it on my eyes, but again, maybe do as I say, not as I do, I don't know. But only one shadow in here called Alegria is not approved for use around the eyes. Let's look at this. This is the color that is not approved for use on or around the eye area, and that is Alegria. I feel like if you know me at all, or if you've watched my channel at all, you know that this palette speaks to my very soul. We've got a mustard shade, we've got bright greens, we've got a metallic green. This is just so beautiful to me, and it's such a varied color range, but at the same time it all goes together and they all speak to each other, and again that goes to the outer packaging as well. This was the palette that I was like, I know that's a must-have. The one that surprised me, on the other hand, was the Muerte palette. Now, the Muerte palette is an eyeshadow palette, so that means that anything that's in here, even though 5 shades are not vegan, they are approved for use around the eye area. Let's look inside. Honestly, this is the one that surprised me. Everyone went crazy over this one when they first saw it come out, and I was like, I mean, I don't need a lot of those colors. And then I swatched it and realized how badly I need these colors. These two colors, which look fairly similar on screen, are so beautiful, so rich, so deep. Just, I mean, it's such a beautiful palette. And look at this. Look at this teal. Look at this teal. It's such a varied palette, and I just want to force myself to use this, which sounds strange. Why pay $58 if you're going to force yourself to use it? But I find this so stunning that I feel like this is something that could push me out of my comfort zone in the most wonderful way. Okay, we've talked about cruelty-free status. We've talked about packaging. We've talked about the return policies. Let's get to what everyone wants to see and dig into some lovely swatches. I am going to do these swatches the same way I always do. I'm going to do them on my bare arm. I do not have any primer or anything on my arm. I am going to do one swipe in the palette with a finger and one swipe down my arm. On the screen, you will see the color names, and anything with an asterisk is not vegan. So please keep that in mind. Asterisk means it's not vegan. I haven't even touched the shadows in my palette, so this will truly be a first impression swatch, and you can see really how they go on. Once the swatches are done, I'm gonna come back here and let you guys know my first thoughts just on the swatches. Let's jump into them because I am so freaking excited. So before we go any further, comment down below and tell me what colors are like perking up your interest, like which ones you look at and you just get those full body chills. Because for me, looking at the palette and swatching them, different colors appealed to me in different ways. Let's start by talking about the Vita palette. And I do also want to start off by saying that I unfortunately do not speak Spanish, but I looked up all of these colors and all of the pronunciations of these colors. I wrote them down phonetically, so I am hoping I don't butcher them too badly, but if I do, please be a little bit gentle. I really am trying. So when I originally looked at this palette online, Serape was one of those colors that jumped out at me. I thought it was so beautiful. I thought it was so sparkly. And swatched, it was kind of a little bit meh. It wasn't terrible or anything like that, but it went on very patchy, very chunky. The sparkles kind of didn't go throughout, or there would be a ton of sparkles here and then there. It would just kind of fade out. And it wasn't very opaque. So while I don't hate it and I definitely want to be able to work with it, I was a little bit bummed out by that one. Here are some colors that really surprised me and blew me out of the water. First of all, Chocolate, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is the most beautiful dark brown I've ever seen. It went on so rich and smooth and pigmented in just one swipe, and I wasn't pressing very hard, and the color was opaque in one dip into the pan. Same with actually all four colors on this end, and I know this is kind of my comfort zone, to be honest. These warm red colors, these beautiful fire tones, every one of these was perfect. I'm nervous about Mexicana almost, because I think it might turn out to be my new favorite red, and I'm gonna have to do a dupe test with my current favorite red. Even Sol was the most gorgeous, gorgeous, warm, yellowy orange color. It is basically the color of the sun, hence the name, and it's just stunning. Now, I will admit a few more shades in this palette. I'm using the word disappointed me, and I don't even mean that they're bad. I just mean that they're gonna take a lot more work than I was expecting. One of those colors that really surprised me was Duelo. And Duelo is just a matte kind of navy blue almost, but when I swatched it, it was patchy from the instant. And before I even got the swatch down a little bit, it was already fading away. So I think that's a color you're really gonna need to pack on super tight. And I have a feeling that that's a color that'll give you fallout all over your face, aka use it before you put on your foundation. A lot of these are really just gonna take some time and patience. Also, Corazon is one that surprised me. So the red in the other palette was beautiful and vivid and pigmented when you first swatched it. This one, not so much. This one, it was a little patchier and it faded away a little bit quicker. So it is definitely deeper than the other red. And I do need a shade like this in my collection. Yes, I said need. Eyeshadow is a need, Maslow's hierarchy. It's like food, water, Corazon. But all of the shimmers in this palette, and there are only three, there's Angelito, there's Katrina, and then there's Calaca, and all three of those swatch beautifully, and they were opaque in one swipe, so I don't think it's the formula, talking about Serape and this one, I don't think it's the formula that's a problem. I think it might just be that shade, but overall, the colors are so stunning, and they all swiped beautifully onto my arm, onto my bare skin. But here's another thing to note. My throat is so dry. I don't know how well you can see. You can see it especially on my pointer finger, but these colors, a lot of them stained the hell out of my arm and my fingers. I just had to use an exfoliant as well as like a sponge almost to scrub my arm and scrub my fingers, and you can still see a bit of pigment there. The reds especially, but reds for me always stain, so that's just something to be aware of. It is not kind of a deal breaker for me, but just make sure you're aware of that. Now let's talk about some dupes. I am going to go ahead and show you on the screen the colors from the Melt palette as well as some dupes that you might have in your collection. I definitely do not have dupes for both of all of these palettes. I'm just going to be showing you a few side by side so you can check them out for yourself. So you might be asking yourself, Linda, why the hell did you only post 2 dupes? And that's because I don't have dupes for any of these other shades in my collection. I'm not gonna lie, when I originally bought these, I thought I was kind of being a moron. Like, Linda, you have every single one of these colors in your collection. But I just sat here for over an hour with all my palettes trying to dupe colors on my arm, And none of them were dupes. None of them were even close. Like that last one where I had the dark browns and I put in that ColourPop shade at the end, that's not even a close dupe, but I still put it in. Honestly, that sort of reinforces and makes me feel better about my purchase, knowing that I don't have a whole lot of these in my collection. Like, I am immediately attracted to these two sort of greeny yellow colors, and I was like, oh, Linda, you have 84 like that in your collection. Or 0. Okay, we're finally here. I am going to slap some of these colors on my face for the first time. Now I have to admit, while these colors are speaking to my very soul, that's easy for me. That's my comfort zone. I want to go a little bit out of my comfort zone. So I am going to take heavy inspiration / straight up copy a look by Laura Oriano, who is the founder, one of the founders of Melt. She did this look on her Instagram and I saw it before I even got these palettes and saved it as inspiration because it is stunning. Look at how beautiful this is. I am sorry for all the fingerprints on my iPad, but this look really got me. It is just so perfect and so beautiful. I really want to try to recreate it. So it is not going to be exactly the same because she did use one of the liners from the collection as a base, but I do want to do my best. So I think from the Vita palette, I am going to use a combination of Papel Picado, which is this right here, and Amor Eterno, which is the one right next to it. And then from the Muerte palette, I'm going to be using Duelo and Noche Eterna as the dark blues, and I might use a touch of Pantheon on the outer edges just to darken it up. And then under the eyes again, I'm going to go back in with these colors from the Vita. I am going to speed this up so we can get right through this. Let's slap some stuff on our faces. Yes, I'm so excited. So super last minute, I decided to do completely different looks on each eye. I just really wanted to play with the shadows in the palette. Okay, just run with this. So we have two very different looks. This one is kind of jewel toned. It's got a lot of shimmer in it, whereas this one is a little smokier, a little more electric, but it's completely matte. I have to admit, I really like both looks. I spent a lot of time on this. I am not a makeup artist, y'all, and I've been filming for approximately 3 hours to get this, to get the dupes, to get all this information in for you. So I hope this has been useful, but let's go over my very first impressions. My very first impressions are that every single shade I used performed like a dream. So for example, Duelo, this is one of those shades that when I swatched it, it was patchy, the color ran out, it wasn't even. When I put it on my eyes, it was perfect. It blended with the other colors so seamlessly, and it just was beautiful. Here's one thing I will say though. You are going to want to tap your brush in, tap it off, and then pat the colors on rather than swiping and swiping. Color and powder and pigment did go everywhere. I definitely had a pretty significant amount of fallout from each of these that I had to go back in with my concealer because I already had foundation on to touch that back up. So these palettes might be ones where you want to do your eye makeup first and then follow up with foundation, because there was definitely a bit of fallout. Now that is not a deal breaker for me because these are so intensely pigmented that I almost expect that. I keep looking at this because I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed with all of the colors in here. I used so many different, like, let me see how many different colors I used. So between the two palettes, I used 10 shades across my two eyes, and my two eyes as opposed to, you know, my third eye. But wait a minute. Hey, my third eye. But I used 10 shades across my eyeballs, and I'm happy with all 10. I don't know what more I could ask for. Again, I know that this is a hefty purchase, but if they were ones that you were considering, I hope maybe this video helped break this down for you to decide whether or not it's something you need in your personal collection or not. And again, I keep using the word need, like this is food or water, but it is actually just eyeshadow. It's eyeshadow that I need. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to the end, you're the real MVP over here. I really, really appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I do put out new videos here every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd love to have you as a part of my family. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Those are all GlitterFallout. And you are super freaking rock stars, and I love you with my whole heart. My whole heart that's inside this big old chest cavity. And I'll see you in the next video when I'm feeling a little less weird. Mwah. Bye.